There was no warning, no battle lines, no surrender. Just before dawn, a Neolithic farming village in what is now Austria was attacked, not to conquer, but to erase. An entire village was wiped from the face of the earth, not by nature, but by other humans. If you value serious, cinematic history, subscribe to Elemental History and join us as we uncover humanity's earliest and darkest chapters. The land near modern-day Schletz-Asparn, Austria is quiet now. Rolling fields, gentle hills, nothing that hints at violence. But beneath this soil lies one of the earliest confirmed massacres in human history. Discovered in the late 20th century, archaeologists unearthed a trench filled with human remains. They weren't carefully buried, but discarded. Men, women, children. Their bones tell a story written in trauma. This is not myth. This is not legend. This is forensic history. 7,000 years ago, the world was on the cusp of a great transformation. At the time of Schletz-Asparn, Europe was changing. Human societies were shifting from the nomadic life of hunter-gatherers to settled farming communities. This period is known to archaeologists as the Linear Pottery Culture, or LBK. These were not primitive people. They constructed impressive longhouses, some stretching over 40 meters. They cultivated grains like wheat and barley, and raised cattle, sheep, and pigs. They shaped tools from stone and bone with skill and intention. But with farming came territory, and with territory came conflict. Land was no longer something you simply passed through. It was a resource you owned, you depended on, and you defended. As populations grew, the pressure on this land intensified. The seeds of organized violence were being sown into the very soil these new farmers cultivated. When archaeologists began excavating the site at Schletz-Asparn, they first uncovered what they thought was a typical feature of an LBK settlement, a defensive ditch. These were common, a sign that life wasn't always peaceful. But as they dug deeper, the purpose of this trench took a dark turn. It wasn't just a fortification, it had become a mass grave. Inside, they found the skeletal remains of at least 67 individuals, tangled together in a chaotic jumble. This was not a cemetery. There was no order, no reverence for the dead. The bones told a story of a single, catastrophic event. Most of the skeletons showed clear signs of violent death. Skulls were crushed by heavy blows. Limbs were broken. The evidence pointed overwhelmingly to blunt force trauma. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery was what they didn't find. Among the dead, there were almost no young adult women. This absence speaks volumes. It suggests a chilling motive behind the attack. The women weren't killed, they were taken. This wasn't just an act of destruction, it was an act of acquisition. The attackers came not only to eliminate their rivals, but to seize their most valuable assets, the future of their community. How did it happen? There are no written records from this time. No eyewitness accounts have survived the millennia. But bones, remember. Forensic analysis of the injuries provides a ghostly blueprint of the attack. Many of the blows were delivered from behind, suggesting the victims were fleeing or caught completely unaware. The weapons were the tools of the time. Heavy stone heads used for woodworking or simple, brutal clubs. These everyday implements became instruments of slaughter. The lack of any organized burial, the haphazard way the bodies were thrown into the ditch, all point to one conclusion. This was not a ritual sacrifice. This was not a formal execution. This was a raid, a sudden, overwhelming assault, likely launched at dawn when the village was at its most vulnerable. The attackers breached the settlement's defenses, and any resistance must have collapsed quickly. What followed was a systematic annihilation of the village's men, elders, and children. The attackers moved with a terrible efficiency, erasing a community in a single, brutal episode. Schletz-Asparn forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about our own past. War did not begin with kings, or empires, or the grand armies of written history. It began with us, in small farming communities fighting over patches of fertile land. This massacre predates the invention of bronze weapons. It predates organized armies and the concept of the nation-state, yet the patterns are hauntingly familiar. We see competition for resources, the violent expansion of territory, and the dehumanization of an enemy required to carry out such an act. The psychological roots of warfare, the capacity for organized group violence against another group. These tendencies have been around for over 7,000 years. It suggests that this dark aspect of human behavior is not a product of advanced civilization. but something far older and more deeply ingrained in our social DNA. It grew alongside our first farms and our first villages, and Schletz-Asparn is not an isolated incident. Across Neolithic Europe, other sites tell a similar, brutal story. At Talheim in Germany, another mass grave from the same period holds the remains of 34 men, women, and children, all killed by the same types of weapons. At Herxheim, a truly bewildering sight, the remains of hundreds of individuals show signs not just of violence, but of cannibalism. Together, these sites form a disturbing pattern across the continent. The world of these early farmers was not a peaceful utopia. It was a fragile existence that faced constant stress from climate change, rising populations, and rival groups. The dawn of agriculture was also the dawn of organized war. The people of Schletz-Asparn did not know they were making history. They woke up on that final day, expecting to tend their fields, care for their children, and live their lives. And then, they were erased. Their story was silenced for 7 millennia, until their bones were found. They remained not as passive victims, but as silent witnesses. Our civilization didn't just pop up peacefully. It was forged through struggle, fear, and a whole lot of violence. The shadow of Schletz-Asparn is a shadow we still carry. Understanding that truth, in all its darkness, is the first step toward ensuring we do not repeat the mistakes written in these ancient bones. If you haven't already, hit that bell now, and we'll see you in the next one.